talk to you later.
Good evening and welcome to the Wednesday, July 17th, 2013 meeting, Courtney, of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. First item on the agenda is other business. Ken is going to give us a presentation for the Community Preservation Committee, presentation of the Spring Bars Road Master Plan for the conservation restriction.
Correct.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Ken Buckland, a member of the Community Preservation Committee. And for the last few months, Jennifer, Jessica Rittenauer from the 300 Committee, myself and others from the CPC have been meeting to talk about planning for the Spring Bars Road conservation area because of the importance it has in terms of the future of the land that the town purchased. The land, as you know, for those people in the audience, maybe I can turn this around a little bit. It's the blue parcel along Spring Bars Road.
Excuse me, Ken.
Madam Chair, I'd like to recuse myself for this.
Okay, you got that, Susan?
Okay.
Sorry.
It's the blue parcel. It's 9.59 acres. It is, a town meeting said it was under the responsibility of the Conservation Commission, and it has a conservation restriction that's been granted to the 300 Committee. So the reason for having our committee set up for the purpose of looking at the long-range planning of this was that, for one, we're looking at the housing development potential within the rest of the parcel of land. But this has a key piece of a connection on what's happening with against a little pond and the area of conservation that we want to see remain. So tonight I want to tell you a little bit about where we are in terms of the planning, and then ask a big favor of the Conservation Commission to see this thing implemented and take it further. The work that's been done to date has been assisted with the Horsley Witten Group, who has prepared a series of concepts and plans and information regarding the conservation parcel. This was money that had been put up by the CPC, CPA funds, the Community Preservation Act funds that were for the purpose of planning. And what they did was they looked at the resources, and for those who aren't familiar, there's a cedar swamp in the parcel. There's another isolated wetland. There's open field areas. There's disturbed areas. There was a former building that's been removed. There is vegetation, fairly heavy vegetation, wooded along Spring Bars Road and along Little Pond shorefront. And in looking at that, it isn't a perfect piece of land. It's damaged, and one of the things that had to occur was figure out how to restore that parcel of land. And with that process that we included community meetings on to get an input on what should occur within the parcel. The most important elements of the plan were that there be conservation, restoration, passive recreation, and activities, and things like a separate entrance and a parking area, walking trails, and a connection to Little Pond. Originally, there was thought of community gardens within the parcel, and importantly, the views through the parcel and into Little Pond were identified. We looked at a few other parcels of conservation land around on the Cape, including the Shumat Holly Reservation, where there's the walkway around Grassy Pond and there are endangered species there. The Municus Quashnet River, where there are small structures that are included in the open space. The Bartolome parcel with ADA access so you can actually get to the water down there as well too. And the Atlantic White Cedar Swamp in Wellfleet that has a boardwalk through the swamp and interpretive signage. Started to think about, are there ways we can get some of those ideas and put them in, not to overburden the parcel of land, but to add the idea that there's restoration of it, plus there's value to it for people to come and visit, and improve this piece of land. So, with this concept, the big piece is that there's a new entrance from Spring Bars Road There's a parking area associated with it, potentially some signage, and then there's a large, we're talking about 10 foot wide, to make it ADA accessible loop that is a walkway through the parcel of land. We, over longer term, may think of other trails that connect through the parcel. Maybe a boardwalk into the White Cedar Swamp, maybe a boardwalk along Little Pond, maybe an access point and some ability to get a kayak in on Little Pond as well. But the long term is that there'd have to be some maintenance of the property as well to maintain the qualities that we'd like to see within there. So we had a cost estimate that was done for this, and in the cost estimate that you have received in the master plan, there's a phased project proposal where there's some invasive species management comes first, some restoration, active restoration, which means you actually do some soil amendments, have some plantings. There's some periactive restoration as well too, where maybe it's just weeding of some of the areas in there to restore it to important habitat quality. The thing is that this doesn't come cheap. It's the estimate that Horsley Witten had come up with for all the phases and for all the structures within the parcel would be $1 to $1.4 million. So we're not going to be able to afford that piece of it, but there's a significant chunk that comes in the restoration of the parcel of land, and with that, we're talking about potentially $500,000 in the estimate from Horsley Witten. But if we provide the kind of stewardship and volunteerism that we've seen in other open space areas, potentially we start to think about ways to reduce that cost and start to get other ways that we're not actually having to spend that much money on the improvement of the parcel of land. But I would like to think that maybe what we can do at this point is come up with some specifications for what that improvement would be. Do the design and the engineering that comes along with specific improvements to the parcel of land and the restoration, and lay those out so that anybody, and if we get a chance to get some grant funds or some other volunteer effort or some other funding that becomes is volunteered, that we can have the improvements start to take place within that parcel of land. What's important about this is that we have, in terms of timing, is that we have in February several grant programs that are coming up, significant state grant programs for trails and for ecological restoration that could be available if we're prepared and ready, shovel ready, to move ahead, or rake ready, or whatever it might be, in this case, to start making the applications for the state funds to come along. So my big ask is that, and I'm coming from the CPC with this request, that the Conservation Commission take on that lead role in terms of implementing this plan. We'll be there in terms of assistance, certainly the committee that's been made up. Right now we have the professionals from your commission. We have the 300 committee. We don't have a community preservation planner at this time, but when that gets on board, we assume that person would also could be assisting in this process, because we'd like to be able to use CPA funds for that purpose as well too, that could be used to do the design and planning and potentially the implementation, supporting some of the efforts. So we think this is a worthwhile cause and hope that you will agree. Do you have any questions?
Okay, let me see some questions, and I certainly have some comments.
Sure.
Jen, do you have any?
I don't have any questions. I've been working with Ken and Jessica on the master plan. We have come up with some ideas to start implementing some of the elements, hopefully utilizing town resources if available. So we do have a meeting next week with the engineering department to go out there and look to see if they'd be able to help us with some design and construction costs so that we might be able to apply for one of the upcoming grants in February.
and to use that. So I
That
was-
said, they are very busy, they have their own projects, we're trying to give them enough lead time that they are gonna be able to work with us.
Right, and I was explaining to Ken earlier that this is similar to some of the other restoration projects we have in town, for instance, the Coonamessett River, where, and I think one of the things I liked about the plan was at least the concept of a phased approach, but now it's to the nitty-gritty of exactly what can we do and how, and part of that is dependent on what grant sources there are. And Bartholomew property was the same. The 300 committee applied for grants for like ADA
Right.
trails and so forth. So I certainly, as I said to you, would be willing to work with you and sort of piecing apart, because that's really what you need to do.
Exactly.
If you, if you want us to take the lead in terms of writing these grants, I can tell you, I've spent a lot of time writing grants in the last 5 years with the Coonamessett. You know, some you get, some you don't.
So we'll just steal from what you've done before.
Well, I'm certainly
At the
willing
time
to, I'm
Change the
certainly
name,
willing
resubmit.
to work with someone if we can get some CPC support as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah,
Great,
but I think it's great.
good.
I think it's exciting. I'd like to, you know, it's a incredible complex of wetlands there that is not seen anywhere else on the Cape. And I would I don't, not necessarily on the Cape, but certainly in Falmouth. And I think it would be nice to start opening it up for the public to use it for passive recreation.
Absolutely. And I think overall, the idea of making this piece of land more attractive also provides some potential opportunity to make a better housing project, because the rest of the land needs restoration as well too. And there's a bigger piece of land over on the housing side than there is on the conservation side. And if we have that same effort that's necessary to improve it, or we're thinking if private money can come in and make those improvements to that parcel land, then we're going to be all benefited by it.
That much ahead.
Important to note as well that the whole parcel of land is under your jurisdiction legally under the Wetlands Protection Regulations as well.
Right,
So anything that happens on there comes to you no matter what.
right. Courtney, any questions?
No, I have none, but it's a very positive project.
I'm glad you segued into the housing, because I think that is important. I think we're setting a good benchmark for the activities that are going to be influenced by others. You know, they're gonna have expectations in the housing. I think if we have a nice foothold and an established program, it really is gonna make it a lot easier for other things to happen on the other side.
It also shows the town, it also
Parcel to
shows
visit.
the town's commitment to the parcel of land as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mike,
No questions.
Mario?
Ken, I just have one question. I haven't had a chance to read the whole document.
Right.
So, I mean, you know, and the answer to my question may lie somewhere within that document. But in the goals and objectives section of the introduction, it talks about creating passive recreation, which is fine, walking, educational, field trips. But it talks about public access to Little Pond for canoeing and kayaking. What are we talking about for public access? Are we talking about structural?
We have tried to think of a way that you can get down and actually be able to touch the water at Little Pond. And Horsley Witten came forward with some concepts of design of steps that might be appropriate for that location. And looking at Bartholomew and what happened there with the idea of a makeshift almost kayak access to the water. There is already access point there now that people are using for that purpose. It's a sensitive issue because we don't necessarily want heavy use of the edge, or there's going to be maintenance problems and quality issues associated with it. But if we can come up with a way that people can actually get down and get to the water and become a more active area, we think that's a real benefit if we can figure it out, the proper design.
Thank you.
And Mario, I'll just add to some other little conversation we had in the beginning. And just for people to realize, any projects that are proposed would have to come before
Come
us.
before us, yeah,
And,
right.
you know, we're certainly, obviously, we would want it in a way that would best preserve the environment. That's
Yeah,
that's
one
the whole
of the
purpose.
things I should point out, one of the things we talked about were community gardens within the area closer to Spring Bars Road. The thought was, though, with the operation, the need for a water supply and the possibility of fertilizers and whatever else, it didn't necessarily make as much sense that the town be responsible for that than if it becomes part of the housing development side of the parcel. So thinking that might be a benefit that could accrue beside the parcel and not have to use the conservation parcel for that purpose.
Okay, Tommy?
No questions, just, I agree this is a good project. I'm confident it's gonna come out really nice. This has been a derelict piece of land for a long time, I think, and it's, definitely has the potential to become another great, Falmouth asset, which we're fortunate to have so many of already. And, I think it's a good idea, like you were saying, if we're gonna open it up and encourage kayaking, canoeing, to have a launch where people can get in and out, and maybe just continue a boardwalk in there. That's about it.
Okay, so did I understand from you, we need to take a vote on this? So,
We'll vote to accept the master plan,
Yeah.
and the implementations of the elements will follow that.
Will-
That doesn't need to be formalized right
no,
now.
and we will work with the
Yep.
CPC on
Great.
this.
And 300 committee.
Motion to,
And the 300 committee.
motion to accept the master plan of the Little Pond Conservation Area.
Second.
Any further discussion? Any discussion from the audience? Okay, hearing none. Yep. Ma'am, if you want to ask a question, you have to tell us who you are, and then you can ask the question. And whoever's appropriate can attempt to answer it if anybody can answer it.
I'm Nanette McClaskey. I live in New Silver Beach. I guess the question I have about the plan for the kayaking and canoeing, hopefully that would be accessed by foot and
Yeah.
not car.
It would just be by
Oh,
foot.
absolutely.
It would just
Okay.
be by foot.
All
The
right.
cars can't
They'll-
access,
Okay.
won't be able to access.
I've never been there, so I'm not exactly
Yeah.
sure what it
Yeah,
looks
and the
like,
whole,
but I
and
would
the
hope.
whole details, I mean, there can be issues for access like that. The whole detail would have to be much more clarified.
Okay.
So we're not necessarily approving any single element here, but we're approving the
Concept.
general concept, and then we'll try to piece out the areas and put together both the funding and the volunteer labor force to implement some of them.
Well, I think it's beautiful. I really do.
Good. And maybe you'll come and visit.
Maybe I'll
What's-
come and volunteer.
Oh, well, look at that.
There you go.
There you go.
Even better.
What's the name?
Okay, so there's a motion and a second on the table to approve the master plan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ken.
It'll be
Look-
Thank you, Ken.
Look forward to
Nice
working
done.
with you.
Madam Chairman, can I make one announcement before you continue? If anybody is here for the Historical Commission meeting, this is not the meeting. Historical Commission is down the hall to the right in the Water Department. A couple of people walked in late.
Walked out?
No, walked in late.
Oh. Okay, request for determination of applicability. Town of Falmouth Beach Department, care of Don Hoffer, 56 Surf Drive, Falmouth, for permission to install a 9-foot by 9-foot concrete pad and shower tower.
Yes, Madam Chairman, the staff is recommending a -2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions on the board? Any questions from the audience? Okay, all in favor of the motion on the table, which is a negative determination, which means, surprisingly enough, that they can go ahead and do the project. That means they don't have to come back under a notice. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Did I ask if there are any comments? Okay. Before I finish the vote, are there any comments? Okay, all opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Marion Bahari, 7 Pond View Circle, East Falmouth, for permission to trim bush and limbs on dead trees.
Yes, Madam Chairman, we've reviewed the project. We're recommending a -2 under the bylaw and -3 under the state. Resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So move.
Second.
Any questions on the board? Any questions from the audience? Okay, all in favor of the motion on the table, which is to accept staff's recommendation of a negative determination, which again means they can go ahead with the project as discussed with staff. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Stephen Reagan, 118 Clinton Avenue, for permission to construct a wraparound porch.
Yes, Madam Chairman, staff is recommending a -2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So move.
Second.
Any questions on the board? Any questions from the audience? Okay, all in favor of the motion on the table, which is to accept staff's recommendation of a negative determination, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Robert Hutchinson, 77 Gifford Street, Falmouth, for permission to raise RAZE, the existing garage, replace with a new addition and to install mitigation plantings.
Yes, Madam Chairman, staff is recommending a -2 under the bylaw and -3 under the state with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So move.
Second.
Any questions? Any questions from the audience? Okay, motion on the table is to accept staff's recommendation of a negative determination. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. The Roy Schorer Trust Agreement, care of Tim Schorer, 292 West Falmouth Highway, West Falmouth, for permission to pump, fill, and abandon the existing cesspool and install a new Title V sewage disposal system.
Yes, Madam Chairman, we are recommending a -2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So move.
Second.
Any questions? Any questions from the audience? Okay, motion on the table is to accept staff's recommendation of a negative determination. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Continued request for determination of applicability. Wild Harbor Yacht Club, care of James Goodhue, 386 Wild Harbor Road, North Falmouth, for permission to install a post-supported roof on sonotubes over an existing crushed stone area.
Yes, Madam Chairman, the applicant has withdrawn the RDA request.
Well, there we go. Request for a hearing under a notice of intent. And because of tonight, I'm going to preface my normal comment by saying almost all hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are heard simultaneously under the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. First up is Scott McCarthy, 4 Surrey Lane, East Falmouth, for permission to construct house additions, expand the deck, install native mitigation plantings, dry wells, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. And where's Ben? Who did this one? Oh! And coming into the spotlight is Tom Bunker. Good evening, Tom.
Good evening.
Jen, do you have any comments
I
before?
will save any of my comments until after Tom's presentation.
Usually Tom doesn't make such a theatrical entrance, but since he does, we'll note it.
Thank you. Tom Bunker with BSS Design. Prepared this plan for Scott McCarthy. It's on the south end of Fresh Pond on Surrey Lane. You can see that we're put on 2 additions. One on the end of the house in here, and the other is a deck across part of the back of the house. There are no additional rooms, except the end is a bathroom or expanded bathroom. And the side facing the pond is an expanded dining room and expanded bedroom on the second floor. Actually, this addition on the pond side is actually going to be up on posts, the same as the deck is. Look at this. It's a total of 339 square feet of expansion within the B zone of the pond. So 75-foot A zone to the pond, and this is just beyond it. The existing deck is 79 feet from the pond, the inland bank. And the proposed addition here will be 77 feet from the pond. There's 339 square feet of addition, doubled, 678 square feet of mitigation planting required. The area downhill from the house, there's a lot of ornamental plants. There was somebody there that liked their landscaping, and there's some lawn area and a wide paths and stuff. So, and a lot of daylilies. So, without going into all the detail, we're proposing the mitigation planting, partly in lawn, partly in some of the flower beds, which are basically just daylily. There'll be other non-native plants removed from those flower beds, but we do show 681, slightly more than the 2-to-1 mitigation planting required. We are proposing to keep, making some of the lawns smaller, but proposing to keep a lawn area across here. The path will become smaller on both sides, narrowing it down to 4 feet. But we do want to keep some lawn down there, which we just up from that. There's a little sandy beach. So I want to keep that area there. There are several trees that I have on here, a locust tree and there's a pitch pine tree, which I have marked to protect and keep. We discussed that. Scott wants to try to keep them. I think some of the members of the board here would say that particularly the locust tree, since it's not a native and it's too close, certainly, I think that's going to come down, but he wants to try. He's going to talk with the contractors. He likes the feel of, where most people want to get the trees away from the house, he likes the feel of the tall trees around the house. So he's going to make a best effort to keep those, particularly the 14-inch pine tree there. The limited work will be downhill from that, but the trees themselves will be protected. And the trees, there's a couple locust trees, another pine tree just downhill from the addition, which are outside of the limit of work and will be protected also. And dry wells will be installed for the roof runoff. That's it. I'll take your questions.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I don't have any questions.
Court?
No questions.
Michelle?
No questions.
Tom?
No questions.
Mike? Mario?
No, I like it. I think it's going to be a net benefit.
My only comment is, if those trees do have to come down, they may have to, we'll just condition replacement,
Yes.
which they would probably want to do anyway.
Yeah, I discussed that with him.
Okay, Jen, could you just put that, note that? Good.
Motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Second.
Okay, any further questions? Any questions from the audience? Yes.
My name is Sandra Galt.
Up.
Sorry.
Okay, that's good, but you have to speak into the
I
microphone.
mostly wanted to see the plan, because it's hard to see from over there.
You have to speak into the microphone and say who
Sorry.
you are.
Sandra Galt. Much better, thank you. So I'm just wondering if this is the existing deck?
This is the existing deck
Okay.
here and the colored parts of the addition.
The add-ons, okay. I just couldn't tell from where I was, if it was going to be added here, but now I can see, so it's more on the right-hand side, facing the pond.
Okay?
Just curious.
You're all
Thank you.
set?
Yes.
You want to take it home so you can see it? I don't need this anymore. There you go.
Might want to steal the idea, thank you.
Good for you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table to close this hearing and take it under advisement. Are there any further questions from the audience? Anybody think of questions on the board? Any last words, Tom? Okay.
Well,
Quit while you're ahead.
All in favor of the motion on the table, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous, so moved. Thanks, Tom.
thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Continued hearings for notice under, continued
No.
requests for a hearing under a notice of intent.
We want the back up.
123 Highland Avenue Realty Trust, care of Susan Newt, trustee, 123 Highland Avenue, lots 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, and 27, and Highland Avenue west of Arlington Street, North Falmouth, for permission to construct a duplex house with 2 dwelling units and maintain 1 dwelling pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 40B, with garage, decks to connect to town sewer, to construct to a new water service to abutting residential lots along Highland Avenue and the duplex house, to construct a gravel drive and parking area and gravel driveway on Glen Avenue and associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Before we begin this project, I know there are a lot of people here for this particular project, and I do want to announce that despite what you might have read in the paper, we are having a hearing, but this is an exception to all hearings are heard under both the state and the local bylaw. This 40B projects, LIP projects, which this one is, are exempt from the local bylaw, just to let you know. So for those of you on the commission, just be aware that we're hearing this strictly under the state, and Jen will review a few things for us after the presentation. Do we have a presentation?
We do, Madam Chairman, although I'd request that we table this momentarily till Attorney Moynihan gets here. She's not here yet.
Okay, it won't be for too long. We're moving along on this
That's good.
meeting.
Good.
Could I have a
Motion to table. Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved.
Butters even more, huh?
Sherwood Blake, 7 Beckles Avenue, Falmouth, for permission to pump, fill, and abandon the existing cesspools, install a new Title V sewage disposal system, replant with trees and shrubs, repave the existing driveway and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping.
Question, please? The motion to delay, was that time certain, or is it?
Well, it's to the end of the meeting. If they're not here,
Okay, thank you.
we'll move on. And we're actually hoping to have a relatively short meeting tonight. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, this project was continued for a few items. We needed to confirm the bedroom count from Scott McGann. The health department, Scott McGann, the health
Right.
agent, did write us a letter confirming that they feel it's a 5-bedroom house as opposed to what the assessors has it listed as the 3-bedroom house. Mr. Borselli dropped off his bordering vegetated wetland data sheets for me. It was issued a DEP number, so that was taken care of. The only outstanding item at this time is Natural Heritage. We still have not received a letter from Natural Heritage, which they do have 30 days to apply.
Right. So, Mike, would you like to ask for a continuance? Kevin?
My name is Kevin Clower. I'm an attorney with Amet Law Firm here in Falmouth. Given the nature of what's going on here, this property is under, not that it's the board's concern, but this property is under agreement, under a purchase and sale, and we're moving towards a late August closing date. In keeping that in mind, would like to try to keep the ball rolling in this as much as possible, given what we're doing, and that fact that it is really a net benefit to the property, and we're replacing a failed cesspool and a failed septic with a much improved system, we think. We're very confident in saying that we'll be receiving a no-take letter from NHESP. Given that, it is our hope that the board would consider closing this hearing conditioned upon receipt of the no-take letter from NHESP.
Okay, I'm going to, we'll see what the other members of the board say, but I'm disinclined to do that. You probably will receive a no-take, but it's really important that we have this
Absolutely.
natural heritage. And suppose you didn't get a no-take, we would have to condition it appropriate to it. We have a lot of projects. I'm not going to name any names, but there are some people who take advantage of exceptions like this, and personally, I don't feel it's appropriate. I could make the same argument that if you had filed earlier, then
We
we
filed as
wouldn't have
quickly
this
as we
problem.
could, given the circumstances, because we were waiting on Well, we didn't know it failed, frankly. But that's understood, Madam. I have to ask.
Okay. Court?
Yeah, I have to agree with your position, Betsy, on this. It's a technicality, and unfortunately, it's, it does hold you up, but we have to follow our process, and our process includes getting notified from the endangered species people. And if we don't have it, we can't deal with it. And that's been our policy, so we can't really, it's not fair to everybody else to make an exception at this point.
That's certainly understood, Mr. Burr. In asking this, we're not asking to disregard NHESP.
No, I understood, but the problem is, it throws a monkey wrench in the deal if they throw a surprise at all of us.
Certainly.
And we don't know that. Something could walk across the road onto that lot just at the time they're out here looking at it.
Are there any other comments?
I'd be inclined to agree with the chairwoman.
In that case, it's obvious which way the wind is blowing. My request is.
Okay, would you like to?
I'll take that back.
Oh, you take it? Okay. Well,
would like a continuance, please. Would love a continuance.
How about for 2 weeks?
That sounds lovely.
Okay, let's have that motion on the table.
Motion to continue for 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, well, any comments from the audience? Okay, all in favor of the motion on the table to continue for 2 weeks, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you very much, Kevin. Can we untable?
Motion to untable.
Second.
Okay, that was just for the record, to untable 123 Highland Avenue Realty Trust.
So we need a vote, right?
Yes.
Didn't we just vote?
No.
Oh.
We had a motion in the second.
Oh, sorry. All in favor of the motion on the table, which is to I'm waiting for comments from the audience, which is to on-table 123 Highland Trust, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved.
Laura Moynihan for the record. I just want to apologize that you were held up because of me. I was spent about 15 minutes looking for a parking spot, so
Oh.
anyway, it's
Well, good evening,
crowded
Laura.
out there. Good evening. Mr. Borselli is going to present the plan.
Okay, just to let you know, when I announced this, I did also announce that this will be heard only under the state, just for the board and for the audience to understand. Good evening, Mike.
Good evening, Madam Chairman. For the record, my name is Michael Borselli from Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant. I'm joined here tonight by Laura Moynihan and Jack Vaccaro of Vaccaro Environmental Consulting. Jack did the wetland delineation and provided the data associated with the wetland delineation. My firm did the site plans, water main design, and sewer connections shown on the plan. We didn't officially open the hearing. This is actually a continued hearing, so I have the abutters green cards. There were a few abutters that had to get notified that weren't originally notified.
Okay.
Just as a basic, procedural matter,
Mike, actually, that used to be set so it amplified in the room, but now it's just amplifies in the, so if you
For
just,
the audience.
You just
so
yelled at the
just
TV audience.
speak up. Be like Tom Bunker.
he's louder than me?
Project.
Yes.
Okay, really? That's good to know. Procedurally, you've already alluded to it. This hearing's being heard under the Wetlands Protection Act, regulations found at 310 CMR 10.0, not under the Falmouth wetland regulations. And it's important to note that because there are some different performance standards, different submittal requirements, things that are vary slightly from the normal proceeding. This property is located on an existing lot that is currently developed by a single-family dwelling. It is known as, by assessors records, as lot number 20. It's actually made up of a series of smaller lots that were laid out when the original plans for all of New Silver Beach were created way back in the day. I think it was even in the 1800s, or late 1800s, early 1900s. This lot has over 37,000 square feet of lot area, which is very unique to the New Silver Beach area. Most of the lots' average size is 8 to 10,000 square feet, or about 25 to 30% small of the size of this lot. The lot is actually bounded on 3 sides north by Glen Avenue, which is an undeveloped roadway in the area where it fronts on our lot, except for a path known as Snake Path, Snake Trail by other people from the village area. On the south side, it's bordered by Highland Avenue, and on the west by a paper street known as Oak Street that is undeveloped but shown on the record plan. So the plan for you proposes to construct a duplex structure on the lot, shown here in dark brown color, with a driveway to gain access to the structure. There are 2 units with garage space underneath. Each of the units would have an associated deck, some foundation planting, lawn areas, and of course the driveway to gain access to the structure. If anyone has been to or seen the property that was also developed by good builders at 56 Hunt Street, this is a twin of that. It's the same architecture, same style building as that building. The wetland resources nearby to the construction include a bordering vegetated wetland to the north of Glen Avenue, shown in green, with upland adjacent to it, and then the path. To the west is some bordering vegetated wetland. There's also a non-eroding coastal bank in this area of the site. There's a finger-like projection of the bordering vegetated wetland here, and there's a smaller wetland on the south side of the Glen Avenue road layout and Snake Path, shown here in green. There's also an area subject to coastal storm flowage on the property by definition, and it's a flood hazard zone A. There's 2 different base flood elevations associated with it, 14 on one side of the line and 15 on the other. So we're also proposing to do work in land subject to coastal storm flowage. The construction activities include the clearing of the land as necessary to construct the house, excavate for the foundation, a widening of the path from its current width of about 3 feet to a width of 10 feet to connect up with the existing gravel roadway that serves the current developed house located in this location. So the gravel way that is currently in existence will continue for about another 120 feet to this location, and then it'll enter into the site and build the gravel area to park and turn around and then exit. The balance of the path heading west will continue to be the same. There'll be some very minor brush removal along the edges. I walked the site this morning. There may be one 6-inch diameter tree that may need to be removed, but there's sufficient width to create a driveway, and that's all we're trying to do is create a driveway to serve this building. So one vehicle can access the property typical of any driveway that we've seen or approved on other projects. In addition to that, we are proposing to connect the town sewer, which in this case is located on Highland Avenue. It's shown on the plan right here, it's on your drawings. And there'll be a sewer connection from the building to the sewer main located in Highland Avenue. Water service will also be via a connection to the structure from here to Highland Avenue. The reason for that is currently there is inadequate water service available in this area to serve this house, plus the excavation in this area may have had the potential to cause an impact to the adjacent wetlands. We had a conversation with, in a project review with Ray Jack, the DPW director, about options for how to get water to this property. And the end result was that he recommended that a new water main be constructed, not in Glen Avenue, but on Highland Avenue. And that's part of our application as well. This drawing now just shows Highland Avenue from its intersection at Arlington Street, which is on the south of the site. For reference, here's the driveway and proposed dwelling. Here's the existing dwelling. So there's a part of the application calls for the installation of an 8-inch diameter water main down Highland Avenue, a new hydrant at Arlington Street, a new hydrant at the end, so that adequate water can be provided to this structure. And also the properties that front on Highland Avenue will also gain the benefit of having a better water supply, because there'll be an 8-inch water main where I don't think there's any water main in the road, so there's an opportunity to connect the town water. The site has some protection measures. We work with some protection measures incorporated into it, the plans that you have, and these plans show a designation of limits of work around the construction areas. We're also mitigating for roof runoff by the installation of dry wells. All of the performance standards found in 310 CMR, 10 with regard to work adjacent to and in the buffer to a bordering vegetated wetland, work within 100 feet of a coastal bank, which is really limited to only this location, have been met. 310 CMR has no performance standards with regard to land subject to coastal storm flowage. So in our review of the regulations, this project meets all of the performance standards and is approvable under the Wetlands Protection Act regulations, because proper measures are being taken to protect the adjacent wetlands. And with that, I'm here to answer questions.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
I just wanted to make a couple of additional comments for the record. I'm Laura Moynihan. The project is one that will go to the Department of Housing and Community Development as an affordable housing project. The project is proposing within the new duplex building 2 units of housing. One is a market rate, we call, and the other is an affordable unit. And I know those aren't wetlands issues, but just for your information. The selectmen on Monday night unanimously voted to endorse the project as a local initiative program project, which essentially means that the town partners with the applicant to submit the application to DHCD together. The affordable housing status, however, I think as you know, doesn't exempt the project from review under the State Wetlands Protection Act, and that's why a separate order of conditions is necessary. All other aspects of the project would be reviewed by the Zoning Board of Appeals under a comprehensive permit at some point in the future, which would address all issues of the project, not just wetlands, just for your information.
Okay. You're done with your presentation? Okay, Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman. First thing to Laura, I understand this is a local initiative project. In the future, any other lit projects, please file with the Concom when you file with ZBA. There is a provision in the Wetlands Protection Act that does say that you need to apply for or obtain, in this case, it would be apply for any other local permit. So, and our council has said that we really shouldn't review it under affordable housing unless you concurrently file with ZBA. I know you're going to be going before ZBA, so I have no problem doing it this evening. I just, in the future, want to go that way.
That's fine. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
no,
a bit of
I-
a debate, quite frankly, that procedure, but if the application's filed and the hearing's
And we can
open,
only
so-
listen to our council, so that debate
true.
can be between
Let's
councils.
put it this way, Laura.
But we can go forward tonight, that's
You might
fine.
philosophically disagree with this, but the next time you go before it, we won't hear it. We'll hear it under vote.
Yeah, so, and it just makes it easier for us. Other than that, for Mike, I have a question. Mike, how do they plan to dewater Highland Ave when they're putting in the water main?
There's a dewatering process that Mr. Good, the contractor, described to me.
Was it in here?
No, we thought it best to just describe it to you, and we're happy to follow up with a written memo if you'd like. There is some discussion in the notice of intent narrative.
Yeah, a little bit. I'll need a more detailed methodology on the dewatering. That'll probably be conditioned, only because if Highland wasn't there, that would be a wetland. I mean, the road's built through that wetland. Been there forever, we know that, but we also knew that when the sewer main was going down.
Well,
So there is going to be dewatering issues out there, and I just want to make sure that they don't impact the wetland at all.
Well, yeah, we know from local knowledge that because of the small wetland in this location and on this side, that if we trench in Highland Ave for the water main, we'll encounter water 3.5 to 4 feet below the ground surface, because Highland Avenue is elevated from the surrounding wetland. The Town of Falmouth water specifications require water mains to be installed to a sufficient depth that they don't freeze, for obvious reasons. In dry conditions, not freezing, to mitigate against potential for freezing, the water main must be installed 5 feet below the ground. But when you install any type of water main in the water table itself, which does happen, and it often happens to avoid dewatering, you don't have to go to the 5 feet because the water table itself does not get to the temperatures that would cause freezing of a water main. So in this one section, there's a potential to dewater maybe 6 inches to a foot of water, which is a very small volume in a controlled trench excavation, because you only excavate in manageable sections, install sections of the pipe, backfill, and then continue. So we don't anticipate a lot of dewatering, if any, but in the event that there is, I'll provide the narrative about the methodology.
Okay, one of the conditions is going to be,
Yeah.
if it's necessary,
Sure.
these are the procedures.
I'm just trying to explain, I'm not trying to
Yeah, I'm just
do
saying.
anything but explain what we expect.
Just to let you know.
Hmm?
And Mike, you had a discussion with Jerry. I know there was some concerns from the abutters regarding the pump station at the end of Glen. Can you just kind of summarize your discussion with Jerry about how it will not impact that area where they have the pump station for the plant?
Sure. When we started to consider options for developing the lot for this duplex, it became obvious that the best place, at least from an access point of view, to get to this side of the lot would be down Glen Avenue, except for a couple of things. One is it's only a path that can be improved into a 10-foot wide gravel driveway. The other was issue with the town with regard to an existing pump station and sewer manhole located here. So before we made any decisions on that, we met on site with Mr. Patomas to talk about that. We talked to the DPW Director, Ray Jack, about it. We looked at the plans, and then we determined that, and it's obvious if you've been there, that that's actually under that's at grade below the roadway, and it was designed for wheel load, so it's H20 loading. Trucks can drive over it. It's flush, so we were told by Mr. Patomas that there's no impacts or no issues with continuing to make the driveway go beyond those to a point that get into our site.
Okay, thanks.
And Mike, is there any way to design this where that driveway would come off of Highland and not Glen? I'm assuming there are a number of people here concerned with that historic path that's used to get from where Oak Street is over to Glen. There has been a number of concerns raised to our office about that driveway, and I know I briefly said to you that we were going to ask if there was any way to redesign it, to bring that driveway in Highland.
Sure.
Since you're putting the water main, the sewer connection and everything down that way anyway, I mean, you're going to be clearing the vegetation that's on east of the house anyway. Why disturb over here in real close proximity to those wetlands when it could be accessed from Highland? Excuse me.
Well, there were a couple of reasons, and we did consider those options. One of them was to try to make a turn in and try to put a driveway between the house and the property line in this location. That was rejected because of the narrowness of this area and the way that the topography is. It slopes this way, and the design of the building is such that it is what's called a garage understructure. It works with the topography, so the garage doors on the low side of the topography is ideal. So trying to snake the driveway in here and try to make a hairpin turn right along the property line, we thought was more invasive to abutters and difficult to work so close to the corner of this house, so that was rejected. The other option we considered was to possibly go around the house in this location, but on this side, as I discussed, there's a bordering vegetated wetland, and then there's a coastal bank, and it's a woodland, and it provides a good natural buffer to the DPW. The coastal bank is stable. It's forested with, good-sized trees. So to go through here would require a significant disruption and regrading on the coastal bank. And then we still have the challenge of the topography being on the wrong side. So it made sense to the developer and our office that this was of the three choices, this was the better choice. Now with regard to the trail will continue to be used the way it is. There'll be a crushed stone driveway that'll be wider than 3 or 4 feet for a section. It'll be a 10-foot wide spot until you get to pretty much where the sewer pump is. But once you run down this stretch about 100 feet, it will go back to the trail. So we have every expectation that it'll continue to be used. We have no rights to block it off or to change that in any way. It'll just be a different surface, and it'll be wider for a short section.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Anything else, Jen?
Not right now. Mike, you're providing, one quick thing, and I know the answer to this. You're providing 6 parking spaces, you're required for 4. I'm assuming that extra 2, that bump out is just so you can get in and out of the driveway. You need that turnaround there, because you can't back out, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Otherwise, you'd be faced with trying to back.
Yeah, no, and that's not good. I knew I knew the answer, I was just gonna throw it out there. I saw the numbers and I'm like, well, can we eliminate 2, but you really can't, because you kind of need that turnaround. Okay, that's all for right now, Madam Chairman.
Okay, Court.
Just following along on the driveway location, and And thinking about the concerns of the neighbors and maintaining a path through there, and this driveway would possibly interfere with that, although practically, both would be used simultaneously, I'd assume. Would it be possible to create a 4-foot wide path beside that driveway? And what are the conservation, or
You get awfully
Courtney, you
close
walk
to
down
that.
the road.
Yeah, you can walk
You
down
walk
it.
down the road, so
No,
it's
I
gonna still be a
understand.
road for a little bit longer, and then it'll be the pathway.
Yeah.
It's, have you been to the site? Because
I
it's
have not.
vegetated to either side.
Yeah, I mean, it's just gonna be an extension of Glen Ave, really. It's not really a driveway. It'll be basically almost like a smaller extension to Glen Ave and then the path. And you don't wanna be creating another trail next to it because you're getting awfully
true.
close to that
Okay.
wetland.
I don't have any other questions.
Michelle, no questions. Tom?
No questions at this time.
Tommy?
No question.
Mario?
Questions?
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 Mike, the driveway is being proposed on Glen Ave, which is a public way, correct?
Private.
I was told otherwise.
I thought Glen was a public way.
My
Mario, if I
research-
told you it was public and it's private, I apologize. I thought it was a public road.
I could double check, but it's not up to town standards, and I don't believe the town took it unless there's some information. They typically don't take undeveloped roads unless they're brought up to town standards. That's my understanding.
You're kind of snaking it right between a pincher movement of vegetated wetlands.
Correct.
And there's, I don't know if you're familiar with this, there's been dumping in the wetlands, both to the north and south of the proposed driveway. And that seems to have affected the delineation. A fill area over wetland is still part of a wetland until we hear otherwise. So I think Mr. Vaccaro has to look very closely at soils and hydrology on both the north and south side of that driveway where those, you can see how oddly configured those wetlands are. The reason for that is fill. There's been fill dumped in those wetlands, north and south of the proposed driveway. Is there any way you can consider routing that driveway from the south, west of the existing structure? And, because we're coming pretty close to that, to those wetlands. What are we, 5 or 6 feet? Something
The
like that?
plan says 8 feet, on either side, it's
Yeah.
centered. Can I answer that, Madam Chairman? If you're saying from the south along the west, are you talking about this way?
Yes.
I just talked about that 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, coastal,
coastal
yeah,
bank.
coastal bank, a forested coastal bank.
Right. And the other comment I want to make is, and Jack Vaccaro's here, we submitted the soil test pit data forms. Based on your concerns, Commissioner Di Gregorio, through staff, we became aware of your concerns, so we discovered those concerns Monday, and yesterday, Mr. Vaccaro went out there late in the day, did the test holes, and we submitted the data with, which we think supports the delineation as it's shown on the plan. Jack's here to add to that if you have any
Yeah,
questions.
could Mr. Vaccaro come forward, please?
Do you have those in the record, Jen?
Yeah, they're all in front of you. You all have a copy of it in front of you as well, and there should be one in the,
Yeah,
there
first of all,
goes
I'd
the-
like to see those, the latest sheets.
Mara, they should be right in front of you. If not, I told Teresa to put it in front of all of you tonight, so.
Mr. Vaccaro, you've been in the business a long time.
For the record, I am Jack Vaccaro, and I'm the president of Vaccaro Environmental Consulting. Go ahead, Mr. DeGraw.
You are familiar with the DEP manual for delineation of border and vegetated wetlands, particularly in facultative wetlands, where we need 3 parameters. We need vegetation, we need presence or absence of hydric soil, and wetland hydrology. Okay, in a facultative wetland like this, you absolutely have to use the 3 parameters. Now, have you done that?
Let me first state how clearly I disagree
And I
with
see you
your
have the
statement.
manual there.
I'm very familiar with the manual. I brought a copy with me. Let me read to you from Chapter 3 of the manual, where it says, "Where activities are proposed in areas that are clearly outside wetland resource areas, parenthetically, in buffer zones, BVW delineations based on vegetation alone are generally sufficient." Now, there are cases where the commission or staff could recommend or request additional information, soils information, if there's an area that's of a particular interest. In this case, you have, and we have provided.
Well, to answer my question, did you use the 3 parameters that's outlined in the DEP protocol?
Yes, we did.
So we should have field sheets. Could you show me where you did your borings,
If you
please?
look at the package that's in front of you, there's a plan that shows
No, I
exactly.
just got it. I don't have time to review it right now.
I know, I let him know yesterday, or the other day, Mark. Here are soil pit 1 and 2, 3 and 4. I asked Jack to specifically look at areas where those wetlands are, where those points are that I had concerns with.
Yeah.
In those specific areas that you were concerned with when we were out there.
Okay.
And that is,
Okay, well, that's something we didn't have before. And I will review your submitted material before I make any further comments.
I think that's a good idea. Thank you.
Anything else? Mario? Tommy? Okay, I just want to point out again to the audience that a major difference between the local regulations and the state regulations is that locally, we recognize, the state recognizes buffers, but locally, we recognize the high significance of buffers, and a buffer in the local regulation is a regulated wetland. It's a regulated resource. But, and then we have certain requirements depending on the distance from another wetland to the buffer. But in this case, buffers are not regulated resources. And so we don't have these distances and mitigation requirements for it. Jen, did you have any other questions?
no, not at this time, Madam Chair.
Okay, so your presentation is done for now?
We did answer questions.
Okay. Are there any questions? And I'm just going to ask you to confine your questions to what we have the authority to vote on. Charlie?
Charlie McCaffrey, Glen Avenue, Silver Beach. I'm not sure of the exact relationship to the regulations, but one factor that I wanted to raise is that this wetland is a significantly degraded wetland, mainly due to restricted tidal flow, which has been listed in several studies that have been done on the Cape. There is actually a grant application I'm aware of that the town has made to the federal government for funding to improve this degraded wetland by increasing substantially the tidal flow to the wetland, which I would assume would raise the level and may extend the wetland somewhat. So I'm sort of asking, to what extent should that be factor, or can that factor be considered? The nature that tidal flow is restricted and will be restored at some point. Or may well be by a public
My understanding
project.
is that the wetlands with question are BBWs, is that correct? And even if the tide were to raise, would that cause the BBW to migrate inward?
That, I
Landward?
can't answer that question, Madam Chair.
Yeah. But
Not without,
Charlie,
not
we- I
without
mean, we
seeing
really
a
have to-
modeling
we really
on
have
how
to-
much it would raise it, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Right, I mean, we have to We have
Base
to
it on
rule on what.
On
The
what
existing
enforce the
condition.
existing
Well, then if,
conditions.
for no other reason, I think the applicant should be aware that there may be public projects in the future which would raise the level of the tidal influence within the wetland, which may also extend as the wetland is restored by the killing of the Phragmites, could affect the peripheral area of the wetland.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what would happen. If you,
Yeah,
if you
I'm not-
raise the tide
yeah.
in a marsh, marshes are dependent on
I think
the
that's
flow
too far
of
inland.
flow of salt water,
Yeah.
and so they will, if the topography is correct, migrate inward. I don't know that reasoning necessarily holds. You know, this is a different,
Well, this,
it's a little bit
the
different situation.
the proposal is to increase the tidal flow.
No, I understand
Oh,
that, but
right.
these wetlands are not marshes. These wetlands are not dependent on the tide, so they're not going to
Well, I think
migrate inward.
I think
when
the objective of the restoration is to make them dependent on the tide, as they may have been historically. But I'm raising the question.
Okay, I'll look at the topography. Court.
See how far that marsh is away
This
from
this
the.
question is directed to
Charlie?
you, Charlie. Has this grant application actually in progress? Has it been approved, or is this a future?
There is a grant application to the Department of Interior as part of the natural resource damage assessment effort that went from the oil spills. The town submitted several applications, one of which included looking at restoring or improving tidal flow. It's my understanding, that one of those included restoring the tidal flow to the marsh, or the wetland in New Silver Beach. Now, that's could be a substantial project, because as everyone who's familiar with the area knows, that the connection from the sea to the marsh is a fairly long one through several blocks of streets. But it was an area where also the sewer was put in. And there are problems with the bulkhead at the other end of where the tidal flow is occurs.
I guess my thought here is it still, that this project has not yet been.
It is not funded.
Yeah, it's still,
It could be,
it's
it
in
may,
works.
I don't,
Yeah,
yeah,
so the
I don't
question-
think it's a,
So beyond I guess
Like-
my point is that beyond the developer being aware that there's a potential for change here,
right.
which is what you suggested, I'm not sure we can make a decision or even condition what we mandate based on something that may happen down the future. I mean, I think you raise a legitimate point, but from our standpoint.
Right, and if this isn't funded, that this project is on a long list of many
Yeah.
projects of this type for restoring
That's
tidal
the
flow.
kind of thing we'd like to see done,
Right.
I mean, quite honestly. Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Yes, sir. Question, comments or questions?
John Belskis from Weston Road in the Silver Beach area. I unfortunately did most of my look-see at this project based on the Falmouth wetlands. And as you've clearly stated, the state, and I haven't got back to I'd like to get back to the CMR. I only found out about this a short time ago, that there was a meeting tonight, only because it was posted in the neighborhood. And I have a lot of concerns and reservations. Now, where Highland is a private road, I didn't catch all the details here, but it has a wetland in the roadway. I am not familiar with the state. I haven't visited in a long time. I know they've made a lot of changes to the CMRs. I'll have to go visit it again. But what by the state regulations are they allowed to do as far as a buffer with that wetland on Highland? I only looked at your GIS map that showed the location of it, and I said, wow, we got 100 feet off of that? And what can we do within that 100 feet?
The state regulation recognizes the importance of buffers,
Right.
but they don't protect buffers with performance standards.
They don't protect much of anything in the EPA these days.
And whereas we, recognize the importance, and we've designated, we all, through town meeting process, through our bylaw, have designated our buffers as a wetland resource.
No, you have fine regulations. I only wish the state could do as well. And the access from Glen Avenue, my concerns are what can be done as far as grading, paving, et cetera. In other words, the state regulations will allow you to do as you may with the buffer zone?
Well, my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, is that this would be a gravel driveway. So if they wanted to pave here, they would have to come back.
Yeah, I guess I'll have to come visit you folks and get some more details of the information supplied, like where was the hydric soil samples taken, et cetera, just to find out if we truly delineated the wetlands properly. One of the things that hasn't been mentioned here so far, the concern is regarding wetlands and the metes and bounds of that. As far as state regulations, again, I'll have to go back and visit. Wildlife habitat characteristics in a resource area are something that is part of the process as far as conservation and regulations. So I don't know how it's going to fit with this. I haven't heard any words about what we lose as far as the population of animals within the habitat. And that's another concern, because that area, I've been in that area for well over 50 years. That's why I have concerns. I'm saying, wait a minute, the hydric soil isn't there? I mean, you can walk down there now and see there's water on the path, well back from the so-called snake trail. So I'm going to be looking at all these things. I'm glad we have a few more weeks to look at it, and I'll be back when I run through the regulations. The role will probably work very hard as when this comes before your zoning board of appeals, because that's my bailiwick. I don't know if you recognize the name. I'm the individual that filed the initiative petition that sought to repeal 40B, which was well voted for in this town. 40B is not functioning as it should. I'm not opposed to affordable housing. I can't get anything through the state legislature to improve 40B because it's the developer's welfare program. It's a very ill-conceived project, and you'll be seeing more of me as it progresses. Thank you.
And,
Thank you.
sir, if you do have further information, feel free to contact Jen, or
Yep.
Thank you.
we'll work with you. Are there any other
I have a card.
comments? Yes, sir.
Horrible.
My name's Gordon McRae, 115 Highland Ave, North Falmouth. One point of interest, there is water service. There is existing water service on Highland Ave. There was a new home put in there approximately 3 or 4 years ago, and they were not allowed to bring water up Highland Ave. They were required to bring it in off of Hillside and, down through there and back. So that's one point that I'm kind of confused about. And since then, there's been another home that has used that same service. Myself, when the sewer came in, I called the sewer and water department and inquired about hooking up to the water, and basically they discouraged me and told me that there's a no-can-do, that basically you won't be able to get water down Highland Ave. That was just some clarification. So there is water right now on Highland Ave, but it comes in from the backside of Highland. I think one point here that I think would help a lot of people, that we could basically revisit kind of the history of the New Silver Beach sewage project, which I believe, if it hadn't gone forward, we wouldn't be here today discussing any of this. And
Sir, could you focus just on information that we need to make a decision on this?
Yes. But it has a lot to do with the new Silver Beach sewage project, I believe. The sewer project, as most people know, went forward, and there's 220 homes that are paying in excess of $2,000 a year as a betterment, because the town basically initially did not support the project. These 200 people stepped to the plate through the guidance of a gentleman by the name of Joe Keenan, got it passed. It was my understanding at the time that the main objective of that was to protect the ecosystem of New Silver Beach, being the beach, the dunes, the harbor, the Hunt Street area down by the yacht club, what they call the elephant path, the snake trail, all these areas. This is what I signed up for. This is what I paid $2,000 to $3,000 a year for my children to have a good ecosystem. Without the sewer system, it would have gone away. Kids go up and down these paths every day. And again, because it was time and again stated when we went to meetings, and I was at a lot of the meetings about the sewer project, that there would be no development. What you saw is what you got. You're going to be able to add one bedroom to your home. Any development you've seen in Silver Beach since this project went through has been cosmetic, shingling. Everything's been on the footprint of the home. No changes at all. Except this year, when the vast majority of the residents return to the beach, we see a new home down in Hunt Street. That ecosystem has been defaced. There's a new home, come out of nowhere. Now this project is coming forward. And I'm just stating facts. Again, I believe the ultimate goal of the new Silver Beach sewage project was to protect the ecosystem, to protect the animals, to protect, there's got to be a reason why they call that the snake trail. There are snakes down there. There are giant turtles. There's beautiful flowers. Everything that people like about that area is based on this sewer project. And without it, and without these 250 people, that area, at the time it was a critical area, one of these AC areas, an area of environmental concern and stuff. And again, time and time after at these meetings, it was stated basically, it's to protect the environment. And again, 220 people are paying for 30 years, close to $2,000 to $3,000 a year to protect the environment. And I just do not think development, I'm not against development, but I just do not believe this is an appropriate area to be developing a home. Thank you for your time.
Okay, sir, I just want to point out two things. And I agree, and I appreciate the fact that people are contributing to help the environment, but the sewer was also put in for public health. It's also a public health issue.
They go
And the
hand in
second
hand.
is, I think you made a lot of good points, but they're not directly relevant to our decision, but they're probably appropriate points to bring up at the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Okay, I agree. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you for your time.
thanks. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Jim Callahan, I live at Glen Avenue at Silver Beach. I have a quick question, just, I'm curious. We're all talking about what's going on here, but where are the plans about the storms? I mean, we talk about Highland Avenue, and I can't really point it out there. I've lived at Silver Beach for many years as a summer person, now I live there full time. To get from Highland Avenue, where they are going to build this, in a storm, I have seen the residents come out in a rowboat. I mean, you literally have the water comes right into that area, and it's my understanding that this driveway path also goes underwater. Is there any, who's talking about evacuation, storms, FEMA, or whatever you have to do in terms of how can you protect this area where we all who live there know this place goes underwater come August, September. Where is that in the plans? Where, and the water comes literally down that section of Highland Avenue, fills it in to the point it's almost literally lapping at Arlington Street. And that part where they're intending to build there, and the same with the snake pond. I mean, I just don't see anyone talking about storms. We have storms. We have tons of water in that area.
Jen?
And sir, I understand your concern. Absolutely, this home is being built in a flood zone.
Yeah.
The applicant is aware of that. Unfortunately, as our chairman stated before, our hands are kind of tied, this board's hands are tied because of the local initiative program, that this project is coming before them as an affordable housing unit. If this project were coming as a straight development and not an affordable housing development, it doesn't meet a number of the performance standards under the local bylaw. Unfortunately, the state, they don't have standards written on land subject to coastal storm flow, which is that FEMA zone that you're talking about. And it should be a concern.
Yeah.
And we understand that it's a concern. And if
Well, we've
it's built
seen-
to the state, if it's, the house is constructed in accordance with the state building code, the particular regulation that this board is reviewing it under at this time.
No, I'm not talking about the construction of the housing. I'm talking about the access.
Oh, I understand
that
what you're
is,
talking about,
and how much
sir.
is a flood zone, or how much is actually an outflow from the marsh itself? We all know places in New Silver Beach that have been built, frankly, on top of marshes.
Highland Ave.
You know.
It's a road that goes through a marsh.
Yeah.
I mean, that road wasn't there first, the
No,
wetland was there first.
that's right.
The road was built through
Yeah.
the wetland, which is why
Check
we have
Wild
concerns.
Harbor Estate's
Yep.
parking lot.
Oh, yeah. I'm
Sir-
very familiar
Yeah, I
with
know
that
that's
area
right.
and the flooding issues.
We understand your concern, but we can only, we have to follow the same regulations that any applicants have to follow. And
Yeah, no, I just,
We're-
you know, I
we're-
kept listening to people, and no one's talking about the water that comes in August and
right,
September.
well, I can assure you that some people did when.
Or
some of
frozen
us were-
pipes.
Some of us were on
Yeah.
a field trip there, and some people explained and showed some of the areas. And I know it's a big concern.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
Any other comments? Yes, sir.
My name is Betty O'Connor, and I'm on Weston Road. And my question is that lot sewered as part of the Silver Beach project?
There is a connection to the sewer, yes, there is.
Was that one in the original one, though? Because there are many of us.
I'm sure Mr. Borselli can answer that. I do believe the site, or Laura can answer that. I do believe this parcel was either subdivided. I don't know how that went. Mike, Laura?
But in any case, it doesn't
Can someone
relate-
answer the
It doesn't
question?
relate to our decision.
No, but it's a question, so.
But I guess what I would like to say is that when this original project was undertaken, there were several of us that were just outside of the boundaries that would like to have been a part of it. And
Ma'am,
we couldn't.
no, I understand what you're talking about, and that I can't answer your question. I'm
Okay.
assuming.
And I know
maybe-
at that time they said it was a closed system, so I'd like the answer to that.
And that's another question you should ask at a ZBA hearing.
Okay, thank you.
But since she asked it, Mike, Laura, do you have an answer?
It's part of the new Silver Beach sewer system, and the water and sewer superintendent for the town has indicated he has no objections to the connection, and that there's sufficient capacity in the sewer system to handle this additional building. And just for the audience's benefit and members of the board who are interested on the comments of build-out, there were a number of lots in New Silver that were considered in the connection process that they would actually be developed. So the sewer was planned for full build-out, and those lots turned out to be not buildable under zoning, so there have been a number of abatements given within the New Silver neighborhood for what the town considered to be lots that would be developed and were factored into the sewer plans and are not developed.
Okay,
Thank you, Laura.
Sir?
Joe Celier, 95 Glen Ave. I appreciate your time, taking the time to hear us. Could I just make one comment and ask Laura on this? I know it's not to the board, but Laura, on that situation, I understand the extra lots. The concern I would have would be that under the stipulation of the abatements, they're usually 3-bedroom lots. And I know that they're using the existing one to go up in the number to have 6 bedrooms. But what I would ask is, if I understand there's a build, ours was one that you helped us work to make it a non-buildable. I would like to see them, and you can bring it up to the building board, that they would actually pay for an additional, because it seems fair. Because-
Sir?
Yes.
This
I
is
know.
a zoning question.
Absolutely. I just wanted to follow
This is
that up.
conservation tonight.
So, exactly, I understand. So my question to you is, what is actually your capability and decision on this? Obviously, your hands are tied with the application of the 40B. You're hearing discussions from people in the audience. You've heard both sides of it. But what can the conservation actually do? I mean, do you have?
What can we do?
Yes.
We can do what we do for every project. People have a right to come in and ask for something on their property. Our job is to see what they want to do, to look at the appropriate regulations, and if it meets the regulations, condition the project to best protect the resources.
Okay, great, thank you. I just wasn't really clear of it seems that what we've heard is a lot of hands unfortunately being tied, and I know you're concerned with the wetlands. I just wanted to understand, were your hands completely tied, or can you actually?
Yeah, I mean, we can tell you that if we heard this under the local bylaw,
Yeah.
this doesn't meet performance standards.
Sorry.
But we don't have the authority to view it under the local bylaw.
Great, great. My second question is probably more for Mike for the engineering, and it does fall under runoff on Glen. Even though we've heard that the DPW's pumping station, which is right next to my house, is grade level, which obviously many of you have been out there. It is not. It's the highest point on the road. I would like to understand, what are they going to do if they do put in this driveway, this gravel driveway, in front of, it's just, you have, the best way to describe it is an anthill, and everything flows off of that bay. Yeah, snow removal, I mean, I'm concerned from the conservation side, how's it going to affect the, it's going to run off into the Triangle V, and that's, auto runoff, car runoff. How high and what is your expectation to bring that up to driving ability? Because it's a pretty significant drop.
Well, there's two things. Someone's mentioning snow removal. We're not proposing any changes in the grade. We're not proposing any changes in grade. We're proposing to put crushed stone on the surface. There's no cutting, filling, grading, or anything that's going to change any of the current drainage patterns. There'll be a placement of a thin veneer of crushed stone, like many of you have on your driveways, like is already on Glen Avenue. You can drive a vehicle over it. As far as the snow removal is concerned, it's already been discussed in other hearings that the snow plows push the snow over, and I'm sure they don't cover up the pump station. Maybe they do.
They actually do, Mike.
Well, then they probably should. Maybe they shouldn't, and maybe someone should call them in case it has to be serviced. But maybe that's a good thing, because now they have to push snow further, so they won't cover up. But the snow would just be pushed a little bit further, just like the rest of the road. It's a requirement to provide for safety to access the houses, so I don't think you're going to see any change in anything with regard to Glen Avenue and what you're used to seeing on Glen Avenue, other than a widening to 10 feet instead of the 3 or 4 feet of footpath you have now in one section.
Mike, you're not using dense grade for the driveway?
No, we're just going to place crushed stone on it. Believe it or not, it's a road bed already. So there was beginnings of a road construction
Stone
here.
dust or anything? You're just going to put gravel down?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just listening to your presentation, because when I go out there and they're constructing a little dense graded driveway, I just want to make sure.
She's right, man.
Are you asking?
I'm asking how you're going to construct the driveway, because what you're saying to me, Mike, and what you're saying to the audience is you're just going to put stone down on the existing grade instead of grading it out, putting the stone dust down like we usually see on gravel
Oh,
driveways.
I wasn't getting your distinction?
Yeah.
Yeah, there'll be.
You just said no cutting or anything, and you do have to drop that a
No,
bit
you
to.
don't. No, you don't. You just have to, there's typically a thin layer of a binder, like dense
Yeah.
grade material,
And
and
I
then
asked-
a veneer of crushed stone.
And you're putting that
And
on
I
the
just
surface
asked if you were using
that's
dense
there,
grade,
the
you said
existing
no.
surface.
We're putting it on an existing compacted surface.
Thank
It's
you.
already compacted.
No, I just wanted you to clarify that, because it was a
Courtney.
bit misleading.
So, let me understand. So, when you say a thin veneer, would you, and you're gonna put some dense grade, tell me the total number of inches of material you're gonna add to that existing surface that you're not gonna change the profile of.
2 inches or less.
And I heard testimony that an anthill will cause a change in slope and drainage patterns. So by your raising the grade 2 inches, 3 inches, whatever, is that gonna change the drainage patterns?
No.
Are you willing to,
Yeah, that's his testimony, Courtney, we can
yeah,
discuss it.
Yeah, but I'd like to see some evidence of that.
Well, the evidence, you, Mr. Courtney, often say that you're a builder in town. If you
I am,
build,
and
if you
I'm
build a
telling you.
driveway and you scrape off the topsoil and put a veneer of binder, dense grade, and then,
But that wasn't your original testimony,
Well-
Mike. Your original testimony was.
You're not
gonna
letting me
put a
answer the
thin
question.
veneer
You
on
asked
top of
me
the
a question
existing
about
grade.
runoff.
Now you're gonna scrape the topsoil off, and now you're gonna do it. Those are two different things.
the question is about runoff and drainage pattern, Madam Chairman, and I think we're bogging down in a minutia here. We're gonna put like any driveway that you've built in your experience, we're gonna do the same that you're used to seeing. Does that change drainage patterns? I say no.
This is actually, what we're talking about is something that's taking place in land subject to coastal storm flowage, where we don't have performance standards.
Well, it's in the buffer to the wetland, and I think that was the concern, that it was going to impact the wetland. I just want to know how they're building the driveway.
Madam Chairman, Steve Good, the builder's here, he might want to speak to it.
Thank you, Steve.
No problem. You guys are both right.
Yeah.
We're going to bring in, I'm sorry, I'm Stephen Good, Colchester Developers. I'll be doing the development for the owner. And you're both right. We are going to bring in the appropriate materials to make that 10-foot path be an appropriate driveway. And we are going to coat it with crushed stone. We are not going to change the flow, as Michael's plans show, of where the water drainage is. Are we going to be bringing material in there? Absolutely. Can I tell you if it's 6 inches or 8 inches or 3 inches? Absolutely not. I wouldn't be able to answer that question right now. But I can honestly tell you that we're not going to change the flow of the water drainage off the pathway.
So
Because-
basically, your testimony is that the end result of your activity is that the existing contour and surface and elevations will not change.
That was not his testimony.
No, I can honestly say the water's going to go where the water's going now.
That's his testimony.
That's my
We have-
testimony.
It's not going to change
We
the
have the
flow, the
information.
I am
current
not
flow
going to change the flow of the
characteristic.
water.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Ed?
Yes, Edward Schmidt, resident of North Falmouth. Just a couple of comments about process. I'm not sure what your intent is here tonight, but I do believe you should be continuing this hearing. Some questions have been raised by one of the commissioners and by some members of the community regarding hydrology issues. Mr. Vaccaro has addressed those issues, but I learned he has only recently, was it today or yesterday, submitted this report. I do know it has been the practice of your commission for many years that all information for any hearing needs to be submitted 7 days before the time of the hearing. There's very good reason for that policy, and that's to give all the members of the commission an opportunity to review and an opportunity to ask questions after they've reviewed the information. I think the public likewise deserves the opportunity to be able to come to the office, review the information that's been submitted, and maybe ask some questions if they have them. So therefore, I do hope you're going to be continuing this hearing tonight. Thank you.
For those of you who are wondering why Ed's not at this end of the table, Ed has served the town for 10 years on the Conservation Commission and also served for 3 or 4 years as our 5 years maybe representative to the Community Preservation Committee. And he's a fine example of volunteerism in town, and we hope he provides incentive for other competent, hardworking volunteers to come forth. Thanks, Ed. Mike.
And Ed and I always agree on everything.
Almost always agree.
Madam Chairman, in response, I just want to clarify, we only were asked to provide additional information on Monday.
Very shortly.
I got word on Tuesday.
Right, I knew.
And I made every effort to get this information to you as quickly as possible. There's no intention here to delay the information or gain any advantage in any way.
Right, thanks, Jack. But, I mean, Ed does bring up a good point, that there's been several issues, including the delineation and also the potential impact on flowage. So we'll give you the opportunity to ask for a continuance. If an applicant chooses not to ask for a continuance, then we have no choice but to close the hearing with the information that we have now. Yes?
Madam Chairman, can I ask
Wait,
Mr. DeCara a few questions?
No.
Sorry, Jack, no?
No, you may not at this point.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh, that's what I wanted. Julie Rotundo, Weston Road, and...
And you have to speak up as well.
Okay. Julie Rotundo, Weston Road. And I just have a comment to make, as I take the path all the time, and I
You ever see a snake?
Yeah, no, but I always scare people. It's really a thrill. So this area right here is a private road, right? So what if they just left this the way it was and then started their driveway here? Why do they have to change this area right here at all? If this
Well, I think they need it to be...
But they don't own this, right? Just like I don't own Weston Road, although I'd like Weston Road to be gravel too, or something.
Well, my understanding is, with right-of-ways, is that you have to have a right of passage.
Right, well, I live on a dirt road, and this is now a dirt road, really, there's not really any crushed stone.
Oh, so your question is, why can't they
Leave it the
they
way
leave
it
it the way it is and
then
just
if
make
they
it
did
the
crushed
width
stone,
they need?
The crushed stone would start where their property starts. Why couldn't they do that?
Well, let's,
I don't know, it's just a question to me, because that's the way
Mr.
I
Good.
see it when I walk down that path. I like a dirt path, I live on a dirt road, this could be all a dirt road, even if it was a little wider, and then the stone wouldn't have to start till there. That's just, that's what I see on that map, that's what I live with, that's what I've seen all my life, I mean, I don't know.
Absolutely.
It could be dirt.
No, it
Right?
is, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Laura.
You're absolutely right. The reason we'd put the crushed stone there initially is to bind it. And as soon as you drive on it, it's going to compact into the material around it. And this isn't going to be something that's going to have to be continually put with crushed stone. But the stone actually acts as a binder so that the road stays solid. Because the last thing you want that to do is the road to deteriorate. As the road deteriorates, where's it going? It's going into the wetlands, which you don't want to happen. So the stone's your friend. Your stone is your friend. So initially there'll be stone put on top of it, but as it gets used, it's going to look just like the rest of Glen Avenue and Highland Avenue. It's going to look like dirt. And then the crushed stone in the driveway will be something more of a landscaping detail, but will be in the personal property. So that road is going to look just like the rest of the road, with just a very little bit of time. It's going to look like a dirt road. It's not going to be this crushed stone, difficult to walk on type of format. the stone is put there as an expense really as your friend, because that's what binds the road.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
And how many feet in the air is the house gonna be? Like how high?
He can answer that question, but that has nothing to do with
I know.
conservation.
I'll stick around, I'd be glad to answer any of those questions.
Jen, did you want to ask Jack something?
Yes, I just wanted to try to help clarify for the public and for Mario. I did ask Jack very late to get these to me. It's something that fell through. Jack, so your soil pit 1 and 2, you did those by flag 130 like I had requested?
Yes.
Correct, and I'm just asking for confirmation so that I can talk this through. In soil pit 1, you did approximately 5 or 6 feet west of 130.
That would be on the upland side?
Yeah, on the upland side, and you got upland soils, and then the wetland soils you did about 6 feet further than that. So those two soil pits were about 12 feet apart? 10
Correct.
to 12 feet apart? Okay. And the same with the ones that you did about 202?
Correct.
Okay.
And I just want to get into the testimony then, that in both of these transects, we call it.
Yep.
We did confirm that we had hydric soils.
Yep,
within the
I saw
wetland,
that.
And upland mineral soils in the
In
upland
the
areas of
upland,
the site.
okay. Yeah, when we went out there, we did poke around in the soils, and I understand that the original delineation was done, as I spoke to you when I saw the data sheets, February. Kind of a tough time of year to do soils, so.
It was about to get a lot tougher.
But, I don't know, February versus this heat. I was better, it was hot.
Okay, let's
Okay.
move on. Any
No,
other
I
questions,
just,
Jen?
I just wanted to clarify that those were about 10 feet apart. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Any other comments? Sir? Succinct is one of the first
John
suggestions
Elstist
I
again,
made at one
returning.
time.
As I sit here listening to what's going on, I hope you folks have recognized the fact that I would expect a developer that files an NOI to be fully prepared. I'm sitting here listening tonight, and I'm finding all kinds of glitches in their presentation. Why they rush to judgment, that's up to you folks to determine. Why are they so expeditious about getting this thing going? That's only a comment. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Yeah.
That the foundation for the building is set at elevation 4, if I'm looking at the plan. And a continuous wall.
I can tell you this, the garage floor is elevation 8.
8.
So your question is
It's
because
the
of
foundation
frost?
wall, yeah.
It's a
Yeah,
frost
so, no, frost wall
Yes.
is 4 feet.
Frost wall.
Yes.
Are we gonna bump into groundwater?
No. Groundwater will be at, or high groundwater in this area is,
I'm just looking at the wetlands.
high groundwater in this area is about elevation 2, and the ground surface here is 8.
8.
So we tried to match the grade.
Yeah.
And then 4 feet below 8 is 4.
4.
So we still have about 2 feet from the bottom of the footing to the ground.
Okay.
Okay, before, yes, sir.
Bob Cefioli. I have to look at this print for a second, is that okay?
Yep.
That's fine.
I want to know how wide this is.
10 feet.
The driveway's 10 feet.
10 feet.
10 feet.
10 feet?
10 feet.
I don't think they got that 10 feet walking down there. Have you people been down there? They're
Well,
saying that
Yes.
that is a natural, that road surface is going to be just the way it is right now, 10 feet across.
No, what his testimony was, the road surface, the additional section of road there will look like the section of road further upstream. He's not saying it's going to look like it looks now.
Well, they have to widen it then.
Yes.
Yes, they know they have to widen it,
Yep.
Okay.
yeah. And then they're going to sort of prepare it, and as cars go into the
So
driveway,
they're
it'll
gonna build
settle
the road
down.
there, and this is what, one of you people just brought it up a little while ago, that it was just gonna be the way it was. Now they're gonna build a road there. I think this gentleman down the end was talking about it, Mr. Reed.
Yeah, well, I
Now
think,
they're gonna build a road.
I think all of us understand what the facts of this case are. We understand what they're intending to do.
Okay.
Yeah, we understand what they intend to do. I still think it's appropriate for us to have a cross-section, a road plan. You know, you're talking about a regulated area, and they're gonna put a road through there, and then I realize what they're proposing is minimal, but, you know, I wanna see something on the record. I'd like to see that there's 2 inches of dense grade, they're gonna drop the grade, they're gonna take this much material out, they're gonna put this much in. You know, I mean, we make other people do this.
No,
so
no,
what's the difference?
I'm not,
I understand.
I'm not
So.
saying, and I know
I wanna see that
Mario wants
before I'm prepared
to look in more detail, but it's up to the applicants to ask for
I
a
understand.
continuance. So we're getting to the point where we're gonna ask the applicants whether you want a continuance, and if you do, Jen, are you prepared to give them a date?
I'm prepared to give them a date, and from what I see, Mario wants to check the soil data. Courtney wants to see a cross-section of the driveway, and if the applicants were going to continue, maybe a formalized dewatering plan for Highland is the information that I have that's in flux right now, or in
Okay,
question.
we'll see if anybody has anything to add, and then you can repeat that again, because everybody on the team is talking, so I don't think they got all that information.
Oh, I'm sorry.
If I can make one comment.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd like to thank the audience for their participation tonight. It's not every occasion that we have a full audience, and the more information that gets out there and how these hearings are held and the input that you actually hold, not only by verbal testimony, but by letters and all that type of thing. It's nice to see communities interact with this.
And be concerned with their environment.
Yes.
Well, certainly, my understanding is that providing a cross-section is not a typical request. You could easily condition any approval that that be provided. You can also condition it that there not be any displacement or change in
Well,
water.
Laura, I just want to say that, I just want to point out that, given the information to look at a cross-section, there may be concerns that the board has, and we may not know how to condition it.
Yeah, Laura, being in the construction business, I know exactly what they're talking about. However, knowing exactly what they're talking about and having this part of the record are 2 different things.
Right, but the issue is that it's not an area that's subject to jurisdiction, correct? So, you know,
It's subject to jurisdiction. I think just the cross-section would help the board alleviate any of their concerns, given that that roadway is 8 feet from the wetland. They usually don't see something that close. So that's maybe why they're asking.
So it's subject to jurisdiction because
come on,
it's
Laura,
within
this
100
is a-
feet?
This is
Yeah,
easy.
within
This is a
100 feet.
5-minute job.
Right.
Why are we making a big deal of it?
Because
Just
you-
draw it up and bring it to
Yeah,
us.
because it's more time and expense, and it's
Well, you still have to go before the ZBA, and perhaps it will give you the opportunity to apply to the ZBA.
What is the next available
It's the
date
31st.
of
July.
July? Okay.
Yeah, it's
Right.
quick. I mean, they don't meet next week, but
Okay.
we could get you on the 31st.
Okay, I won't be here, but,
And then the next one after that, Laura, is the 7th of August. We're pretty open those days.
all right. So is the purpose of the continuance then to limit the review to the cross-section, or is it?
No, anytime we continue.
Okay, I'm just asking, so we're
Okay,
clear on what
Cro-
our
cross-
obligations
You've been
are.
before us before.
Cross-section dewatering plan for Highlands, if you're going to continue it and provide the cross-section, then I'd like, Steve, if you wouldn't mind just writing up a more formalized dewatering plan for Highland. Only because it's a really tight site, where you're going to put your basin, how you're going to get the water there, things like that.
An
possibly.
explanation of why the separation where the groundwater is high, just so that you can have that. Where you're not gonna be as deep with the water main, where you're actually gonna be higher elevation, where the water table is higher. Just an explanation of all that. Just, no,
Yeah, I
it's just,
mean,
yeah, just,
I mean, Highland, you might run into just some issues over there, given that area.
So does the information have to be provided a week in advance?
If possible, yes.
Okay.
So by the next Wednesday.
There was another one, too.
Oh, Mario wants to check the wetland forms.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah,
not
but that's
something that
not
needs.
something they have to provide. We
Yeah.
already have the information.
We have the information. But you want the cross-section of the driveway, and I brought up the dewatering.
You want to go to August 7th? I think we're going to need another week if you need the information.
Well, we don't have a motion on the table, so you
So
got
August
your
7th
request
is fine.
in just in time.
Asking if the August 7th
Yeah,
is.
Yep, that's
absolutely.
good.
Okay.
on
thank you.
behalf of the applicant, I'd make the motion to continue this till August 7th.
Second.
Okay, any further questions on the board? And just to be aware, any questions we ask that night will probably be confined to this, but not necessarily. Everybody will have an opportunity to look at the record again, and there may be further questions that relate to our jurisdiction. We're not CBA, we're conservation. Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table.
Just a quick comment. The information, and this is as much for the public as everybody else. The information that we're requesting is so that everybody's on the same page, that there's no confusion. There's no confusion on the part of the developer as to what his ground rules of operation are. This is now on paper. We understand it, then you also understand the parameters. We all have a frame of reference. And going forward, that's better for everybody.
Okay, thanks, Cory. Any further comments from the audience? Yes, you're in the audience, even though you're part of the applicant's
Just
team.
to address this, I know the owner, and I work in town and in this area a great deal, and this isn't something that was just done hoi polloi that we started with a month ago. We started this planning process a year ago. I talked to Jen about this project months ago. Michael and Laura have put in in-depth time talking to the boards and seeing what's the best way to accomplish this project. And there's been a great deal of thought that's been put into it. And you may not all agree with it, and I can understand that. Nobody likes change, and I'm well aware of that. But everybody is here trying to work together. That's why we're at this meeting, and that's why we agreed to the continuance.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Final chance.
Bob Seffioli. I have one more question. I was just on the road today. As you go down to the very bottom of the road, the house on the right, then there's some sort of fire apparatus type thing, or big electrical box right there. And also there's there's some sort of manhole cover there.
Yeah, that's all has to do with the sewer. All of that has to do with the sewer. It's a
Okay.
sewer pumping
Well,
area
here
and
the thing
a
is,
manhole.
That manhole cover, if you're looking at the grade of the road.
Sticks above. It's not supposed to, but we know that it does.
It's above.
Right.
Way up above. So if they're gonna continue that road, doesn't that mean that that road has to be higher?
They're not gonna touch that part of the road.
Well, it just seems like, so you're gonna drive over a hump.
That's what
I mean,
the application.
The thing is, you're not gonna be able to do that.
This is the application before us. If they want to rethink that and suggest something different, they have a choice to do it now because they're going to continue it.
Okay.
But we're well aware of that issue.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table to continue this hearing until August 7th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Could I That's exactly what I'm going to ask. I know a lot of you have comments. Could you please either go outside or way in the far hall, because we still have business to conduct. Thank you.
Whose wheel is that?
Mine, I feel,
Request to amend the existing order of conditions. John and Maria Maxwell, 13 Ocean Avenue. For permission to pump, fill, and abandon. Nope. Request to amend the existing order of conditions. DEP 253871 to expand the patio, install a generator, bluestone walkway, and remove existing pavement. Before you begin,
We don't need one. I amended. No, we already did that.
It's going to hit him over the head with that gavel next time.
And we didn't take our quorum for that, but we're going to continue anyway. But the quorum for that one was Mike, his quorum for both. You just literally kicked everybody out of the building.
Mike, what?
Can I go?
Yes, Mike, I called on you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. For the record, Michael Borselli, Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant. This is a request for an amended order of conditions. Abutters were notified, and I have the certified receipt cards. The commission issued an order of conditions for renovations, demolition, partial reconstruction of the property of the house at 13 Ocean Avenue. And actually, at this time, that work is underway. If you've been to the site, you'll see that the main bulk of the addition is constructed. There's still some features on the outside that are incomplete. They're doing interior finishes, and the owner hopes to be able to get an occupancy permit in the relatively near future. During the construction, and as is typical, sometimes there's some things that you consider that you weren't aware of at the time that you initially proposed the project. And in this case, there are a couple of minor elements that I think fall into that category, so we requested an amendment. And I did a blow-up, and I tried to limit and color code the things that are of importance.
Madam Chairman,
Thanks, Ed.
Can't close it.
No.
No, we can't close the door.
Can't close the door.
We can't close the door. You have to just silence the crowd. It has to be an open meeting, Ed. Go on, Mike.
To refresh your memory, this is a developed lot. It's on Vineyard Sound. There's a revetment in front of it. There's a small strip of lawn between the house and the revetment. There's actually a buffer plantings along the edge of the riprap. We have a coastal bank. We have land subject to title action, and we have some flood zones on the land. All of the work that is under construction was approved by this commission. And as I was alluding to, there's a couple minor elements that we're hoping that we can add to the project with your approval. And I've color-coded them. I'm going to start with this area, which is on the seaward side of the house. There's currently a partially demolished existing patio. Part of it's demolished here, but there's a flagstone patio still remaining here that was originally proposed to be completely demolished, rebuilt slightly smaller, but not closer to the wetland resources, which met FWR 10.18. The applicant, after reconsideration, thinks it would be good for them if they could make that not closer to the wetlands, but back to slightly larger size, so that it's about the same size as what was in place before they started the demolition process. So we're asking for permission to make that slightly larger. That's in an A zone. In the B zone, I don't know if you can see it, but I'm going to show with my finger here, there's a little yellow rectangle, and on your plan, if you look, it says proposed 3-foot by 6-foot generator pad. It's directly adjacent to an existing reinforced concrete wall that is in fact the septic system, a mounded septic system. So the applicant, because of experiences in the neighborhood during power outages and things, is wanting to put a generator. So there'd be a concrete pad here to support a generator. The third element that we're asking permission for, and we've had these discussions before about flagstone and bluestone walkways that sometimes appear, but they weren't on the original plan, and when it comes compliance time, suddenly there's a walkway there that wasn't approved. Well, we're trying to be proactive in this case, and we've shown a bluestone walkway that leads from the driveway up to the main entry, and a small bluestone walkway that leads to a side covered entry. Those two elements are in the outer buffer zone B. These are all in areas where there's no clearing or alteration. And when you do the math and look at the impervious surface calculations, the net result is you're increasing overall impervious surfaces by about 29 square feet. So because there's limited room for mitigation planting, and because there's excess existing pavement on this side of the house, this red area is an indication of a portion of existing pavement that would be removed to offset the increase, so there's no net increase in impervious surfaces on the project. The original order of conditions actually had a net decrease in the A zone of 201 square feet. And the request to make this bigger is much far below that decrease in impervious surface that was originally contemplated. So in our analysis, the net result is there's no net increase. Therefore, we don't believe there's any need for additional mitigation planting. And we're here to ask permission for those activities, and I'm here to answer questions.
Jen?
You moved your shower over, Mike?
I'm sorry, yes. I forgot about the shower. There was a shower proposed here, same size, it's just going to be over here.
And we went from it being a shower to an outdoor rinse station. Is that the new trendy term for an outdoor shower? Okay.
Yes.
Is that it?
No, and you're saying your increase in impervious surface from your previously approved plan, so you already had a little bit of a proposed patio in the last plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we had,
No, only because I'm looking at you have the amendment over the former existing conditions and not over what, you know what I'm saying?
What was proposed?
What was proposed in your last one? Okay.
Given approval
okay.
for.
Then you're gonna take that driveway out.
Michelle?
Bless you.
No questions.
Mike,
No questions.
Mike.
The concrete pad for the generator is in place.
is in place?
It's in place. It's poured.
Did
I
not
think
know
it's a
that.
good idea, so
I
don't
did
think
not
it.
know that.
All right, it's there, it was there today.
Don't
The
you
only
go
one,
out to these sites, Mike?
I actually went out and walked this way because I wanted to make sure it was staked. I didn't even bother to go over there.
yeah, it was, I don't know when, but it was there today.
You guys have seen me go fly.
You have a little, what the heck direction am I looking at? North of that retaining wall, there's a planted vegetated area, a little strip right along north of that wall.
Yes.
There's a couple stones that make it a pathway. I'd like to see it shown, and just so we know it's there, because it's supposed to be platted, and they're there and they're there.
That's something.
If you can
All right.
put it on paper, I'd like it.
Yeah, that's
Mike,
something,
just put it on the plan and give it to me tomorrow.
that's something Mike can do.
Yeah, that's fine, that's fine. I guess I
Mario.
showed I've been there.
No questions.
Tommy? Could I have a
Motion to close and take it under advisement.
Second. Any further questions? Any questions from the audience?
Audience.
Okay.
Why is it so cold in here?
Oh, yeah.
I'm sending an email tomorrow.
Goodness.
All in favor?
Courtney's gonna be
I
boycotting
suggested
it.
just before you got that everybody bring a hooded sweatshirt next week.
Oh, no, not the hoodie.
The dreaded hoodie.
All in favor of the motion on the table, close the hearing and take it under advisement, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, unanimous, so moved. Thank you, Mike.
And I put that.
Vote orders and conditions, Comcast, North Central Division and N-Star Electric Company, Surf Drive, map 4702017, 002A. Falmouth, this is, Tommy and Michelle can go start signing.
I think
Oh.
I was on Comcast.
Comcast?
We did it
Was
last week.
Last week.
Yeah.
I was here last week.
You were?
I was.
Tommy was not.
Tommy wasn't here.
I'm so glad I made
Mario,
an
you were
impression.
here, Mario, you're on it, you're not excused to sign.
It's nice to see this project moving forward because they lost another cable.
Yeah.
They had to
Yes, they
bring
did.
Jen-
I'm glad to get rid of the binder.
Yeah, amen. Yeah, they
I
had
don't
to-
think there were any special conditions. They pretty much went through all the concerns that the board might have, especially when the cable comes up offshore. I would be just concerned with the Scala population out there, but the DMF doesn't seem to have any
Yeah, and
concerns
even
with
if
that.
they're gonna dig it up and fill
Yeah.
it in.
There have been people that have asked me if they're removing the dune, and I've explained that it's being directionally drilled underneath the road, underneath the dune, underneath the beach, and comes up
Yep, it was
on
an
the
excellent
seafloor
presentation.
quite
Yes.
off of the shoreline. So, the only special conditions I'd have would just to keep that site fairly clean in their staging area, away from Salt Pond, away from the buffer of Salt Pond, and away from the Mill Pond stormwater retention area that was created.
Correct.
Because that is a concern of mine, that their construction equipment might go in there.
I
So-
suggest they schedule an appointment with you
Yep,
before they,
They
Make
could
that
put
a
up a limit
condition,
of work around
pre-construction
it.
contract.
around the
absolutely.
Mill
When is just a
Pond.
visual barrier?
Yeah.
Set the-
Just the orange construction.
When is this gonna happen?
I'll move to accept the
All
order
right,
as
oh, wait a
discussed.
minute, and a visual barrier, that stormwater was a
Yeah.
concern of mine.
right.
Okay.
And it's a visible site.
Oh, yeah, I plan on
Oh,
going
when
with
that
just to see
directional
it.
drill goes in, I'll bet they'll get quite a few onlookers.
Right.
Yeah, Big time.
Okay,
I'll repeat
I
my
wanna go.
motion, which is
Me too.
to approve the order as discussed.
Second.
Mike and I go.
okay. All in favor of the motion on the table, which is to approve the orders discussed, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, unanimous, so moved. Linda, Jeff Roy, Carla Weinberg, and the grosses are off this now, and I don't know which address there is, but this is 63 and 55 Gerard Avenue and 20 Wheeling.
The grosses are the 20 wheeling.
Okay, so
it'd be
63 and 55.
55 Gerard, this is the beach management plan. It'll follow, the conditions will follow basically every other beach management, maintenance program the town has, including doing yearly transects. They'll have their, seasonal snow fencing. They're not putting the
The one at the
Permanent.
wall.
the permanent wall. They're gonna keep all activities about 30 feet off of the eastern property boundary, because I wanna make sure that that area
Yeah,
doesn't
there has to be a
somehow get-
finding
Yep,
that
That this is,
this is still under
Finding.
litigation,
yep,
and there's to be no activity within 30 feet of that until that litigation is resolved, and depending on what the resolution is.
yep.
I'll make a motion to approve the order as discussed.
second.
Oh, wait, and then transects, and that just goes to the beach nourishment
Yeah, all the
Yeah.
same
'Cause
things that
basically
we
what
would
they're doing
require
is they are attempting to nourish the beach through a natural
by just spreading out what's there.
by trapping the sand with the snow fencing in the winter months, which I think is a good idea.
Right.
Instead of bringing in material, they're going to take
It's nice
what's
sand
naturally in the
that's
system.
there.
Yep. Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table?
Who seconded it?
Mike Powers.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved.
Madam Chair, can we move to Peter Bennett, because this other one will involve a little more discussion.
Okay, Peter Bennett, 344 Quistit Avenue.
Quorum.
Quorum. Where's my quorums?
This is an amendment, I think.
Yeah. Maybe I wasn't on
Mario, and Michelle.
This is the amendment, Madam Chairman, we just have to redo their calculations, but otherwise, they were moving the garage that was being turned into the guest house from this location, they were shifting it north, I believe.
whatever.
To the other side.
Yeah, sort of the other side.
Ish. And there was a calculation, so they will have to provide mitigation plantings, which both the representative and Mr. Bennett, who was in the audience, agreed to.
Right, and I would
Yeah.
just say that those mitigation plantings are at a place that you mutually agree, and then that there's a final plan that comes in that shows where they are.
Okay.
I'll move to accept the order as discussed.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Estate of Angeline Caruso, care of Eugene Caruso, executor, 191 Edgewater Drive, West, East Falmouth.
Yes, Madam Chairman, this is the project on Edgewater Drive that had the variance request for the board. There were a few variances that were required because the project could not meet the performance standards. You heard the variance request. Brian revisited that the last hearing. The board does need to make a determination of whether or not you agree and accept the hardship arguments, whether or not you believe the resource areas are better protected if the project were to go forward, and if the applicants, which I don't believe they put this argument forth, but if they are providing a public benefit.
Okay.
Actually, they did do that. They did. So, and whether or not you believe the applicant is providing an overriding public benefit with the project.
Okay, I just want to make a couple of comments that I want you to put down as
Okay.
findings. That there is testimony that this is a particularly healthy habitat, a forest with virtually no invasives, and also that it's on an impaired water body. I mean, you could flesh that one out.
Yep.
Court.
Just have a question on process. Since variances are requested, it seems to me that isn't our process to first decide
Correct.
whether we're going to approve the variances before we go and vote on the order? In other words, it's not I believe that's the process
Well,
we should be
we vote
following.
on the variance first.
Yes.
And then if the variance is not granted,
Then there's a denial.
then it's a denial. Right. And just so, Mario, you're new to this process, just so you understand, we always put a positive motion on the table. So someone will put a positive motion that we are accepting,
Is he granting the variances?
granting the variance, and then if you disagree with that, you vote against it.
Okay.
But I just want you to know that's what the process is. Okay, Court, did you?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the variance request for this project.
Second.
Okay, and do you have any comments?
I can take it.
I'm not sure, based on the discussions that we have had with town council and the minutes that were provided, certainly reinforce that the test of meeting hardships has been met. I also think that in the case of this, we had testimony that building a house on this undeveloped lot was actually going to improve the environment, and this would be a betterment. And I guess I'd have to agree with the suggestion that someone made that how does building a house and putting a septic system on the property improve the environment when you have a naturally occurring situation? So I don't think they meet the test. I'm very sympathetic to their argument that they've owned the property for X number of years since Methuselah was a child, and that therefore, in the time that they've owned it, the regulations have changed, and somehow they should be given deference to that since they've been paying taxes on it as a buildable lot, and all of those things. However, while I'm sympathetic, I don't believe they meet the test. And we don't have in our regulations a provision to grandfather old lots and allow them to be built on. So because we don't, I think we really have no choice but to deny the variance request.
Yes.
When the presentation was made to the board from the town, I specifically asked, it sounded to me like the only project on a public land has a chance of satisfying the requirements. And the response to this is there might be a situation where you could utilize the variance. That was the response from town council. I think we found one. I'll give you my 5 reasons, and we can all take it or not take it or not. The property is unique. It's not like a dock where if we make a change in the rules, we're going to have a flood of people coming in. It's truly unique because of the circumstances about that. It's not common to every project. As a commission, we routinely consider the cumulative effects of an action, not just on this property, but across the resource areas. And to me, this is actually the reverse. Unreasonable damage has been done to resource areas historically. And whether we like it or not, that one increment of one septic system is not going to hit that estuary any more than we give variances for unique, and I think this fits into it. There's no doubt about, in my mind, there's a real hardship. With the variance, the applicant has the right to bring it to the property to its highest use. Without a variance, it has no real value to economic value, property value. And it's not as easy. We're asking for to build a bigger house because he wants a bigger house. It's that he's going from where he is. And I'm just going to note that the town has set the difference between those two. It's north of $400,000. It's real money. We're not talking, I think it is a real hardship. It's not a payment. I have to reject the notion that we be compared to the proposed considerations of the do-nothing alternative. The town of the resources of Falmouth would be better off if all people stayed on the other side of the canal. The resources would be better off if the buffer zone was 300 feet, not 100 feet. I believe our regulations are intended to help that, strike the compromise between competing and conflicting demands. And here you have a real competing and defecting land. If you compare it to the no action, well, clearly the house is not good. If you compare it to what the town is doing in the area or has allowed in the period, I think it's okay. And my last one is the town contributed to the situation. For at least 14 years, we've been taking, or they've been paying taxes on this property as a buildable land. We've brought that up. There is the argument that says the applicant had the obligation to understand the consequences of changing regulation. But the town isn't, if they're guilty of not staying up, the town is more guilty. The town has the expertise and to make that determination, and in fact, the applicant had to go seek that same expertise. And the one that really gets me is the town has the GIS capabilities that could have identified that situation anytime in the last 4 years. It isn't a matter of the town having to walk around and look at every wetland to say is it buildable or not. We have a GIS system that we paid for, and a few keystrokes would identify that we've been asking these people to pay more taxes than we'd probably like to build. So with those 5 arguments, I'm saying that we have the provisions that would allow us to give a variance, and I personally believe that here we're at.
Okay, I want the first crack at this one. And that is, first of all, you're buying the argument that Brian Wall said that it's since 2008, and in fact, since 1998, we've had strict buffer regulations, and it's not, every time Jen does an RDA, she says resource area boundaries not confirmed. You can't say it's not the town's responsibility to go around and look at every undeveloped lot and send a professional land surveyor to see whether there are resources that are going to restrict the area. People have a right to come in for ANRADs, where ahead of time you can come in and say, well, what's the building envelope? It's people's choice to take care of that. Your argument about taxes with hardship is then they're contributing to their own hardship by saying that they're paying the taxes. It's people's responsibility to know what their resources. There are lots of people, I mean, we've all known people who have bought lots. I mean, Courtney's one, and he's already told us this, where regulations have changed. There are lots of people that buy lots as part of their investment, and that's a risk that you take to understand what you can do with that lot. And as far as unique, there are unbuildable lots around town that people are paying taxes on, and if people are listening and they have areas with wetlands and they're paying taxes, it would behoove them to come in to see whether it's buildable or not. These regulations have, these particular regulations on buffers, very strict performance standards, have been in place for 15 years now.
Yeah, Madam Chairman, I mean, you've got a salt marsh in front of that property. There's salt marshes up and down Edgewater Drive. The salt marsh is not unique to this particular
Well, it's unique in
lot.
its entirety. They came in with the argument that there are a few other, and I did the percentage while Brian was giving that, and it's about 5% of the lots in the area have not been developed. Well, 5% isn't unique.
Well, I mean, but that's not. Just because the lot is undeveloped that's not it.
That doesn't make it unique.
No.
No,
It
I
definitely doesn't
agree
make it
entirely with what you said. Unique is defined as one of a kind. There's no such thing, you don't modify unique, okay? There's no such thing as somewhat unique or partially unique, or, it means one of a kind, and I don't see that this property is
Then
one of
why,
a kind.
if you take the strict interpretation, and I listened hard to Attorney Harris, and it came back, and I purposely asked, I said, I don't understand if you take the strictest definition of how you can ever do this. It just doesn't make any sense if you just follow it. And her answer is, there may be situations where you could utilize it. That was the answer to me. Now, my own attorney just told me we have the right to utilize it. That's all I'm saying, we found it and unique. If you're gonna take the word unique, of course there is no, every piece of land is unique in some way, and it's similar to every other piece in other ways. And this is, I'm back to my case, is one of our goals is to be fair. And if we change something about a dock for one person, then every person who has a dock has to expect to come to us. But to me, if it's 5% of the people in this residence of Falmouth have this condition that is different than the other 95%, we have the ability, and I will argue, responsibility to pay attention to it. It is unique. It's not like every dock. It's different. Its property is different, and it's different in partly. And I hear I didn't say that the town is responsible for this. I'm saying it contributed to the place where we're at.
Well, you could make the same argument that it's because we have regulations. Well, we have regulations. If we had had these regulations back 50 years ago,
we wouldn't be in the mess we're in.
We wouldn't be in the mess.
I agree.
And we have the regulations now to best protect what we have left. And there's no way you can possibly convince me that putting a house and destroying a third of a naturally vegetated area is better protecting resources.
I am not even going to argue.
That's a specific requirement of the.
Then we don't have authority to give a variance on any property. That's the beginning and end of it.
That's
and
not necessarily
let's just stop.
true.
I don't understand. If we don't meet on this, Madam Chair, we're going to disagree on this, and I respect your opinion.
And I respect your opinion.
There we go.
And let's move on from this argument. Yes.
I think this is it's a discussion that we have every time we come up with a lot like this. And in fact, when I first came on this board in 2003, the very first case that we heard had to do with this particular, exactly the same situation. And as a matter of fact, Ed was sitting on that. And we denied the variance request, and the basis for the hardship was absolutely, word for word, the same in 2003. The only change was it was a different location. Same thing. The guy bought the lot in '73, and he owned it for all his time, and he was a poor school teacher, and he was going to retire to this house, which was now, didn't meet the buffer requirements. And he said, oh, I've been paying taxes on it ever since it's a buildable lot. And that was the thing, and we denied the motion for variance. And we have to be consistent. And also, I would say, that goes to the question of uniqueness. 2003, I heard the same arguments sitting on this board, and Ed was sitting on it too. I can't remember the name of the people. Same problem, undersized lot, within the buffer, didn't meet the regulations, request for variance, hardship, pay taxes on it as a buildable lot, it was going to make the environment better, and all that, and we denied the request. And I was torn by that. I'll be honest with you. This is where I agree with you, Mike. These things tear me apart. I want to be able to approve something like this. But the simple fact remains, we have to be reasonably consistent. And I can't say that the current situation that we're looking at on this lot is any different and therefore unique than what I sat on the first case in 2003. So I can't support it, much as I'm sympathetic to the guy. It's, as I said before, it's too bad we don't have a grandfathering clause, but we don't. And so, because we don't, we can't do anything about it.
I'll make,
I mean, you know, we could,
I am, this is a soliloquy at this point, but I'm going to make it anyway. I think the applicant did as best as you could do and still meet the intent. It is not as if, we have seen projects where you had to decimate what was a pretty nice little piece of resource area to do anything. They've kept the house as small as you could. They've done every planting you could. We can say that we will never, we can write a conditions that you're not going to have a path, you're not going to have a dock, we can build it all in. So it is, I'm back, maybe it's different on other sites that we will have seen in the past, and it is different than sites we'll see in the future, and we should have to judge each property on its own merits. And I think the applicant has done as best as he can to meet those at this site.
Okay, I'm going to make one more comment in that we have denied variances in the past. They've been appealed. I mean, they've gone to Superior Court. Sometimes we've won, sometimes we haven't. But when we haven't won, it's gone to the Court of Appeals, and we've always won. So both the local, well, not local, what it's called, the Superior Court and the Board of Appeals have upheld our variance. Court of Appeals. You want to comment?
I'm compelled by my fellow commissioner's diligence at interpreting what he heard. I heard very similar things as well. I am in sync with what Mike has been saying.
Okay, can I call for the vote?
Please.
And make it straight as to,
Yeah, so that you're not on it and Tommy's not on it.
Okay, Mike, Betsy, Tom, Mario, and Courtney are my quorum for this.
So the motion on the table, just to make it clear, is to accept the variance, to approve the variance.
Okay.
So if you don't approve of the variance, you're going to vote no. If you do approve the variance, you're going to vote yes.
Gotcha.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Yeah, 2 approve, 3 deny. So could we have a motion to approve the order?
Hey, I hear you.
agreed.
All right. Motion to approve the order?
Motion to approve the order.
second.
Okay, all in favor of approving the order?
Wait a minute. Let's be on, I want to be clear what
We don't have to,
You denied the variance.
and that's it?
That's it.
Yeah.
That's
you
it. All right.
denied the
Done.
variance.
All right.
Motion to
You know where you're going.
The project has been denied, you
Right.
denied the variance.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Can I ask you to turn it down? And I'll show Susan.
Courtney, I will either send an email tomorrow regarding the weather.
Nestled in a classic New England setting amid 200-year-old elm trees and charming colonial homes, stately sea captains' homes, and charming Cape Cod salt boxes, Shoreway Acres is a graceful blend of Cape Cod's past and present.